Hi, this is Joseph from the Crystal Gemcast, and on this special episode of Steven Reviewniverse, I'll be discussing the fourth Steven bomb. If you want to skip to a certain episode, please select from the options below, and as always, beware of spoilers. The review of the first episode starts in 5. Every relationship has a beginning, and after the reveal of Garnet being a fusion in Jailbreak, fans have been waiting anxiously to see the origins of Ruby and Sapphire. The fourth Steven bomb begins in a high with the answer. The episode not only answering the question the fans have been asking for ages, but also providing the underlying theme for the entire set of episodes. The answer is, as many people have already guessed, love. And love is the force that keeps everyone together, not only romantically in the case of Ruby and Sapphire, but also familial love, friendship, and the kind of love that puts the welfare of others before your own. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The episode's main strength is the way it tells a simple story elegantly, while still giving hints about the homeworld. We meet Sapphire's former boss, Blue Diamond, for the first time. We get confirmation of how much the homeworld hates fusion, and we get to see Pearl kicking serious butt. But more than that, we get a real understanding to who Ruby and Sapphire are as characters, and how they diverge from their fellow gems. Ruby has been brought up to believe she's unimportant and replaceable, but to Sapphire she is unique and important. And Sapphire, who had accepted that she had no agency in her life, finds out that her future vision is only the things that can be, and that she does have control over what she does. We also get one of the most beautiful songs that the show has produced, with adorably awkward but believable lyrics and callbacks to Stronger Than You and Giant Woman. And finally, we get another look at Rose Quartz, and while there may or may not be dark things hidden in her backstory, her unconditional love and acceptance for Garnet is the capstone on a romantic, heartfelt and beautiful episode of Steven Universe. In less than 15 minutes we gain a new understanding of Homeworld and Garnet, without it ever feeling like a plot dump or wasted time. You owe it to yourself to see this one, especially if you wonder why you're so sure you'd rather be you than anything you were expected to be. Growing is one of the major themes of Steven Universe. No character ever stays the same, as situations force people to mature, yet the fear of disappointing others and stagnation remains as a spectre on the horizon. On this episode, Steven is caught between these two forces, as his fear of disappointing or losing Connie makes him use his transformational powers to be physically older than he actually is. But as all masquerades go, it can't last forever, and the consequences temporarily turn Steven into a baby. If the latter part of the episode had been the focus of the story, then it probably wouldn't have worked. But thankfully, the focus is on the inner turmoil of Steven, and on Connie's understanding that she cares about Steven for who he is, regardless of how old he appears to be. Being yourself is the sort of message that a lot of shows have, but it's also an easy one to mess up, as it can excuse mean characters from actions that hurt others, or accidentally make the argument that people shouldn't need to improve themselves. But Steven Universe's focus on self-improvement stops this from happening, and cuts through to the meat of the issue. There are no shortcuts to growing as a person, and you'll never make anyone happy by pretending, especially as Connie never really wanted him to in the first place. And we do in the end get to relax as we know Steven truly is aging in his own way, and Connie doesn't have to worry about becoming president and having Steven as first boy. The episode is also a great character piece for Amethyst, as we see how much she's matured from the beginning of the show. She's the one who pleads with Steven to not overstretch himself, her empathy for him being a far cry from her earlier selfish attitudes. And when she could have rolled her eyes and said, "I told you so," she helps him. Greg also gets some character focus, as we get confirmation that he was the one that brought up Steven single-handedly when he was an infant, putting him in the running for the greatest single parent on TV award. Steven's birthday gets across an old message in a clever way, and keeps the Steven bomb on track with another good episode, but now it's time for the plot to really kick in. Is there anything worth more than peace and love on the planet Earth? That's what the song in the episode It Could Have Been Great asks, and we find out that not everyone agrees with that assessment. The drill has finally been completed and the gems need the coordinates of the cluster, so they travel to the moon to retrieve it, and once there, Peridot and the Crystal Gems getting into an argument over the future of the Earth. It's heavy stuff, but it never gets overwhelming or too uncomfortable, and we can see why each side believes what it does. For Peridot, the episode raises questions to whether or not she's learnt anything from her time with Steven and the Gems, but it also looks into who she is and what she believes. The homeworld seems to promote a utilitarian ideal onto its citizens, that the resources for the harvested planets would be good for all gem kind, and that peace and prosperity come from cooperation. To Peridot, the Earth would be useful and peaceful if the plans had gone ahead, and all the rebellion did was endanger the Earth. But to the Crystal Gems, it isn't about making life better for the most amount of people, but that all life is important, and that principle supersedes all others. It's the philosophy of Star Trek Insurrection if it had been done competently. And while Peridot doesn't realise it, to speak badly of Rose Quartz was never going to go down well with them when they're all still grieving for her. The ideological rift between the Crystal Gems and Peridot has grown, and it makes the final moments where Steven sees Peridot steal the diamond object very tense. We know something is going to go down, but the question is what. But while all the philosophical aspects were important to the story, it would fall flat if it wasn't paced or written well, and thankfully they managed to pull everything together. The relaxed section at the beginning builds up the stakes for the rest of the episode, and Peridot's rhetoric slowly diverges from the others as the episode goes on, allowing the tension to build. The jokes are also important, as they provide the levity to stop things from getting too grim. It Could Have Been Great is in fact pretty great as the first part of a two-part story, and well worth watching in its own right. Following on pretty much from where the previous episode ended, Message Received provides a fulfilling climax to the Peridot redemption arc, and gives us one of the most satisfying experiences in the show's history to date. Peridot reveals the thing she swiped was a communications device, and she wants to contact Yellow Diamond. Stephen locks her in the car, but she escapes and a frantic race begins. Eventually, Peridot manages to get in contact, but the answer she gets is not what she's expecting, and she refuses to let the cluster destroy the Earth and insults Yellow Diamond to her face. Peridot is a crystal gem now, whether she likes it or not. The greatest thing about the episode is the way that it misleads the audience towards Peridot's motivation, and whether or not she's changed as a person. And as Bloodsbane on Tumblr pointed out, she has, but two things remain: her reliance on logic and her trust in Yellow Diamond's inerrancy. One of the two had to break, and it was the latter. It makes logical sense for the cluster to be deactivated, and for the Earth resources to be used, all the resources, not just minerals, and she believed that Yellow Diamond would see this. But as we find out, Yellow Diamond is a spiteful, bitter character who cares more about the destruction of the Earth and her superweapon than life. Even though Peridot sees the world differently from the rest of the Crystal Gems, she shares many of their ideals, and she finally has a place to belong. We also see how much the Crystal Gems need to learn about forgiveness, trust, and how different they are to the homeworld. The way they see Peridot's actions as a betrayal show that they don't really understand her, though in Amethyst's case she feels emotionally hurt by someone she might be developing feelings for. Stephen alone was willing to believe that she could change, and Rose Quartz's message of unconditional love and respect for all life continues to be shown through his actions. The episode also flows perfectly, starting off slow and gathering pace as the fight for the communicator begins, peaking with the conversation between Yellow Diamond and Peridot. All the build-up from the previous episode gives extra power to that pivotal scene, giving it a cathartic punch that makes Message Received a must-watch, and one of my favourite episodes. Stephen Bomb 4 ends with an episode that is a bit of a coda to the Peridot redemption arc, which also fills in the details we might have missed before, and ties a bow on the themes that the group of episodes explores. Stephen is given Peridot's tape recorder, and he listens to it to see how Peridot and Garnet managed to get over their differences. What we find is scenes we didn't see during the building of the drill, from Peridot learning about mopping, wearing pants and stilts, to her falling in love with the seemingly Canadian TV soap. But it all comes down to Peridot trying to understand why Garnet is who she is, and while they don't end up fusing, she does find the explanation she's looking for. While the previous Stephen Bomb used their final story to end the story arc and bring resolution, this Stephen Bomb uses it to fill in the loose ends. We'd already seen Peridot learn to respect Pearl, and saw the beginnings of what may be a burgeoning romance between her and Amethyst, but there was tension between Peridot and Garnet that hadn't really been dealt with, and this is the thrust of what this episode was about. Peridot's worldview had no place for Garnet, but it also had no real understanding of love in general, as Homeworld's philosophy instills a hierarchy mentality that emphasises a kind of selfishness and closed-mindedness. It was only her experiences with the dippy Canadian soap that gave her a frame of reference, that two people at their best together would want to stay together. As discussed through the reviews, the answer, once again, is love. For her own part, we also see that Garnet's view on Peridot changed when she realised that Peridot was pushing against her old mindset. Unlike Stephen, who is willing to give everyone a chance, Garnet only gives chances to those who appreciate them, and given Garnet's backstory in the answer is completely understandable, if somewhat ironic given that Rose unconditionally accepted her. In the end, the rift was healed by a mutual willingness to understand. The light-hearted snippets of Peridot discovering her place in the world make log date 7152 a likeable episode that's worth watching, but for me it's the weakest of the Stephen Bomb, as it doesn't quite grip me the way that the others did. Overall, the fourth Stephen Bomb was a triumph, a wonderfully paced mix of episodes that push forward the cluster arc while giving backstory to fans of the show and giving the characters room to grow and understand each other. The themes of love, trust and identity resonate through all the episodes, and that binds them together in a way that the previous Stephen Bombs never quite managed, and unlike the weaker Sardonyx, it also manages to keep every character understandable and likeable. It is, in my opinion, the best Stephen Bomb so far, and it manages to raise the bar of quality for Reviewniverse significantly. Let's hope the rest of the season keeps to it, once it returns from yet another hiatus. But what did you think of the fourth Stephen Bomb? Please let us know in the comments, or send us an email to crystalgemcast@gmail.com. If you like this video, please like, subscribe and share. Also please check out the Crystal Gemcast, our analytical podcast about Reviewniverse at crystalgemcast.com. Have a good day, and keep V-City weird.